Will one of you finally give me what I desire? Yes, we will.
What's going on, guys? RBG here, bringing you my breakdown on the official trailer for Marvel Spider-Man 2. And this couldn't be any more gratifying for a multitude of reasons. Because for one, people can finally leave me alone when I call the game Spider-Man PS5 or Marvel Spider-Man 2. Even though that's all I had to go off of, Insomniac has essentially used both, with Spider-Man PS5 serving as the game's official tagline and Marvel Spider-Man 2 serving as the official name for the upcoming sequel. And I know a lot of fans are bummed regarding the announcement that the game will be only available on the PlayStation 5, but just looking at the 2023 release window has me thinking that the console units will be very plentiful by then. And rumors are floating around that Sony is planning on releasing a pro version of the PS5 around that time. So there's a likely chance that things will have sped up before or by the time 2023 rolls around. Now, in terms of the actual name, which for whatever reason people are still confused by, there are still some of you who thought this would be called Marvel Spider-Man 3, even though the title Spider-Man 2 was never used until now. Just because Spider-Man Miles Morales was the second entry in Insomniac's continuity does not mean it's Marvel Spider-Man 2. If that were the case, it would have been labeled as such. Same could be said for the first entry. It revolved around Peter Parker, whose story was more expansive than that of Miles Morales in his game, so rightfully so the game starring Peter would be called Marvel Spider-Man 2 and not something like Marvel Spider-Man Peter Parker. So hopefully that somewhat explains things. But anyways, guys, there's a lot to break down and uncover within this trailer. One of the first things we gotta talk about is the visual makeup of the game. At first glance, it might look like nothing more than your typical CGI trailer, which Insomniac Games is notorious for with some of their promotions. But it's important to note that they only put out those types of trailers around the time their games are about to release. Every reveal trailer we've gotten from them were running on their respective game engines, and this new reveal is continuing that trend. And it's definitely going to push the PS5 hardware to its limits, which I was hoping for. Like, there was no way Insomniac could make the game look as good as it does now if they released it on the PS4 as well. There was going to be some major compromising in the visual department if they did. PlayStation Blog mentioned that they're going to be taking full advantage of the PS5's hardware, saying, and I quote, "While pushing the capabilities of the console will be very exciting, we're equally pumped to craft all new stories for Peter and Miles in this sequel. Just as in our previous Spider-Man games, we not only want to tell a great superhero story, but also deliver a compelling human story, one full of heart and humor that dives deep into the people behind the mask. Much of the development team that brought you Marvel Spider-Man is returning to produce Marvel Spider-Man 2, including Brian Intihar, the creative director, and Ryan Smith, the game director. Today's game footage trailer is merely just a glimpse at what's in store in terms of the new abilities our heroes will acquire, suits they will wear, and the villains that will try to hunt them down. So yeah, there's definitely more in store for us down the road. But for now, let's talk about the new gear our main heroes will be sporting for this upcoming adventure. Upon first glance, it may look like nothing but the same suits we saw Peter and Miles wearing when we last saw them. But there are a few key differences that stand out if you look close enough. Firstly, we gotta talk about Peter's advanced suit. On the original suit, the third row of legs on the spider logo went outside the red panels and touched the blue material, but this time around it stays within the red. Also, the white parts, which have been noted by Insomniac to be carbon fiber, now go along the waist and form around the inner forearms instead of just going straight down. On the original advanced suit, the red panel wrapped around the waist completely, but now it stops on the sides and is intercepted by the red panel that covers the chest and torso. This sort of puts me in the mind of the design patterns from the Amazing Spider-Man 1 suit, which the original advanced suit has already taken heavy inspirations from. It also reminds me of Disney's Marvel Spider-Man cartoon suit. Something tells me that run-in with Rhino made Peter rethink things in terms of gear. Now, when it comes to Miles' gear, it features some major changes such as the patterns and the overall texture on the suit. One of the things that I've noticed right out the bat is that the red line that runs along the torso up to his shoulders now goes down to his arms. Which I'm not sure if it's just me, but it kinda gives off a Nightwing vibe. But another thing I noticed is that just like Peter's suit, the panel or the belt doesn't completely wrap around his waist. It's almost as if Miles linked up with Peter to get sort of an upgrade since he didn't get his own advanced suit in his game. I mean, you could count the one Insomniac released as DLC, but I don't think that was canonical to the game's story, so there's that. The suits just look really cool, and I can't wait to see what all new features come with it. And since we're on the topic of features, I want to briefly highlight some of the things we might get. It seems like Insomniac is going to double down on things you can do in that particular field. Peter is most likely going to have double the amount of suit mods he had in the first game, and Miles is going to have multiple variations of his bioelectric Venom powers. Something that I noticed in regards to Peter is when he was using his spider arms mod, it looked like the arms were infused with electricity. It's almost as if he was able to use the electrically insulated suit mod ability with it as well. And if that's any implication that you can now combine mod powers together, it could make for endless possibilities. While it was great that you could use gadgets in tandem with the suit mods, I always wonder what it would be like if you would take it a step further. Another theory I have is that Miles could have used his Venom blast on Peter's Waldo arms to give them a little more oomph, but we'll just have to wait and see what that entails. Now, in terms of Miles' bioelectric abilities, it looks like it'll come in two forms as opposed to the usual orange colored form we saw in the first game, but now he can utilize this blue electricity as well. I'm not exactly sure what it does, but it looks like it's going to add more complexity to his gameplay. Judging by the color of this new electric power, it looks like he could have acquired it after he absorbed the new form reactor's full quantity of energy into himself shortly before he released it. Not to mention that new form energy was blue. I could be wrong, but that's just my theory until the story says otherwise. But moving on, I wanted to clarify if this game will feature multiplayer. It's been a question on people's minds since Insomniac had announced that they'd be looking for a director who specializes in co-op gameplay for an undisclosed project. Not to mention fans have stressed that it would work perfectly for Peter and Miles. And sadly, if you were looking forward to playing with your friends, it doesn't look like it's going to happen for this project, because Sony is making it clear that although the game boasts 2 Spider-Men, it'll only be single player. So yeah, it's unfortunate for those who wanted that co-op feature. But to me, this is an absolute win, because Insomniac works best when their titles are simply single-player story-driven experiences. Not to mention that although we got a taste of what Peter and Miles could do as a team, it wasn't something we could completely control in Spider-Man Miles Morales. But now it looks like it'll potentially be a new mechanic for Marvel Spider-Man 2. Something I appreciate about Insomniac is that they're not too proud to borrow features from other superhero games. One of the most borrowed from combat systems would have to be Rocksteady's Batman Arkham series. If you ask me, they're really the gold standard when it comes to fighting mechanics. Whenever I thought they reached their peak with new features, they kept outdoing themselves with each Batman game. The free flow combat system was already perfect in Arkham City, but the dual play feature in Arkham Knight made it even better. During certain events of the game, players could seamlessly switch control of Batman to one of his allies while in free flow combat, and I thought that would be an effective and welcome feature to Spider-Man if Peter got to work alongside any other superpowered individual. Fast forward a few years later, and it looks like Insomniac's going to be utilizing it for Marvel Spider-Man 2. And I'm hoping this little instance confirms that. Just seeing Peter's mentorship with Miles play out while actually playing the game would be great. But with all those details out of the way, I think it's high time we focus on the story side of things. During the trailer, you can hear a mysterious voice with a thick Russian accent, and when you hear that type of accent, Kraven the Hunter instantly comes to mind. He's arguably one of the biggest villains from Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery, not to mention that he's been featured in a slew of Spidey games from the past. One of the most notable instances would have to be from the comic book storyline Kraven's Last Hunt, where he defeats Spider-Man and dons a copy of Spider-Man's costume to prove that he's more superior at stopping bad guys. It's an excellent read, and I highly recommend you guys check it out if you haven't already. But this narration totally fits him. He goes on about finding an equal or someone who could even beat him. And as he's narrating all this, we see Peter and Miles fighting individuals who are dressed like they could be hunters themselves or under the command of Kraven. And it looks like they've been tasked with killing Spider-Man, but they simply can't get the job done. And that's where he says that all they've given him is disappointment. When he asks if someone, or quote unquote one of you, can give him what he desires, we see the man himself, Venom, emerge from the shadows. And if you've been following the story up to this point, then you knew this was coming. You just didn't know how or who's going to be playing him. Well, we do actually know who's playing him, or should I say who's voicing him. As soon as the stream ended, Sony revealed who will be voicing the alien goo covered villain on PlayStation Blog. They say, and I quote, "Speaking of villains, did you catch that final line at the end of the trailer? We're so happy to announce that Tony Todd of Candyman fame will be voicing the symbiote-fueled Venom in Marvel Spider-Man 2. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, when I heard his voice in the trailer, it brought back memories of his performance from Transformers 2, where he voiced the Fallen. And it's perfect because that's what the Venom from the Tom Hardy's version sounds like, except Tony Todd did the voice all the way back in 2009. So it's like we've come full circle with this. But anyways, when Kraven or this mystery voice asks if one of you will give me what I desire, Venom answers saying, yes, we will. Which is the perfect dialogue setup since Venom refers to himself and his host as we instead of I or me. This almost suggests that duality will be a key undertone in the game's story. But as I was saying earlier, I have no clue who will be playing the host of Venom. Both Marvel Spider-Man games have highly alluded to Harry being the likely candidate, and it's very much possible since he'll be the first host for the symbiote, but I don't think he'll be Venom. Let's not forget that Eddie Brock exists in this universe, so chances are him or Peter will be the main hosts like they've been in most iterations. I find it a bit funny that Insomniac's version of the Spider-Man logo looks very similar to Venom's, and I wouldn't be surprised if they deliberately made it look like that to set up potential scenarios pertaining to the character. For all we know, the symbiote might grow accustomed to the symbol, causing Peter to revert back to the old one he had did away with when he lost his first suit, but we'll just have to wait and see. If anything, I think this is the perfect time to bring Venom to life on home consoles. Like, we gotta be honest, the symbiote has been one of those things that has never translated well in video games. But now that we actually have capable hardware, we can see Insomniac mimic what was done in things like Spider-Man 3 and the latest Tom Hardy version. The effects can actually look legit. But with all that said, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown because it took a great deal of time to do, and hopefully I can have this up a day after the trailer. But what are your thoughts about Marvel Spider-Man 2? Are you still confused by the title? And who do you think will serve as Venom's host? Let me know in the comments below. As always, I asked you like or dislike the video. It doesn't have to be a thumbs up, it can be a thumbs down. Any feedback is good feedback, will only help you improve on my channel. But if you really enjoyed the video, it would help me out tremendously if you shared it with all your friends and followers on social media. Sharing really makes a difference. But once again, this is your boy RBG signing out on another video. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.